Hi guys, welcome to Celestial You. Today I want to talk about the new earth. So what is the new earth and what does it have to do with me? The new earth is a theory that was propagated by Dolores Cannon, who was a hypnotist, and also separately by Eckhart Tolle, who wrote a book, The New Earth. And what those two stories basically say is that we're in a time period right now that the earth is splitting into old earth and new earth. This is sort of similar to what you would find in the book of Revelations from the Bible. And a little different though, because in the Bible it's about judgment, and in the New Age movements it's more about the fact that there are two different frequencies here on Earth, that Earth itself is a being, and that Earth is moving up from the 3D to the 5D. And those are densities, or people sometimes call them dimensions. And what it represents is going from the third dimension, which is the physical, to the fifth dimension or density, which is unity consciousness, love consciousness. So really the earth is coming back to a frequency of love. And you might ask yourself, why wasn't it always at a frequency of love? And well, it was. This was before the fall. So the fall of earth is also described in the Bible as when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, ate the apple or the pomegranate, whatever you want to interpret that as. And that was a time where before this, they were in a sort of utopia, love consciousness, they didn't have shame. And afterwards, the earth fell. And during this fall, they became aware of good and evil. They became aware of good and evil because it was revealed the frequency of a sort of bipolar earth where things can be divided between good and evil. Now, when you look at the Piscean era, which is what we're exiting, the era of religion, the era of the teachings of good and evil, as we exit that and we graduate religion, which is what's happening, the religions are all fighting each other. They're othering each other instead of unity. Well, Pisces, the lesson of Pisces is actually unity consciousness. So as we are going to the new earth, once you graduate from this idea of good and evil, which could be distorted to say that people who are not like me are other than me, othering. So when we kill other people, we think of them as other. When we are in the 5D, the new earth frequency, we think of them as united, right? We think of them as, if I hurt someone, I'm hurting myself. Once we get to that new earth frequency, that love frequency, that co-creative frequency, we graduate basically into the Aquarian age. We are in that transition right now. And there's a lot of speculation, and there's been some downloads that other channelers have had. And I actually wanted to share my downloads today with you. So I've had a lot of questions about this. I've had some deep conversations with my friends about this subject and others. And I always want to be able to give you guys the best information, the latest information that I have access to. So I channeled information from my guide, Kendra. She comes from this right side of my body when she comes in, and she kind of sits on my face a little bit. Her energy does. Her background is that she's from the ancient city of Lumeria. That's when she was incarnated here on Earth, and that she's also a healer. And she was a botanist, or more so a herbalist, I would say. So Kendra, I asked her a bunch of questions about the new Earth, and I want to get right into it. So the first question I had is that we've had a recent shift where many of the energy sensitives have realized that we don't feel the same way we used to, especially regarding our karma. So our karma has shifted. So what is karma? So in astrology, the karma is the North Node, the South Node, and the Saturn placement. So look at those placements in your chart if you're following along. And my sense is that we completed quite a bit of our karma. So in order to graduate from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, you have to graduate your karma. And I was asking the question, what does that mean for our astrological chart? Does that mean we can't read the chart anymore? And I was told, no, we can read the chart. But the North Node, which is our direction in life, and the South Node, which is our past lives, is still directionally correct. However, in the new Earth, we do not have the level of extreme karmic penance, or I guess the word would be, we don't have extreme karmic repercussions for everything. So even though, I might be developing a certain area of my life associated with the North Node that I don't have past lives in, if I'm developing that, a lot of times if I fail to go on that path and there's an eclipse, the eclipse will rock me. It will correct me back into the path. And those corrections are often jarring. They're almost punishing, I would say. And so that's what maybe we would think of as classically karma. But karma is just cause and effect is what it really is. And for every action, there is a reaction. And if you are far from your path, as described by the nodes in your chart, there may need to be a correction. But as we graduate to love consciousness, our alignment with our soul is so strong that we don't veer off of our path as much. And so what Kendra was saying is, by graduating, you graduate your karma when you say no to the things that are karmic. I'll explain that. So when you say no to, for example, codependent relationships, let's just say your North Node is to learn more about relationships, but because of that, the position in your chart, you're suffering from a lot of people who like to take advantage of you, where you're not having even push and pull within the relationships, even give and take. And so you might be suffering from codependency. Now, as you graduate to New Earth, you're saying no to that. So once you say no to the lower frequency, now the higher frequency manifestation of that North Node position can occur. So if this has to do with your relationships, now you're growing in the type of relationships that you can have. So looking at that position in your chart, we can still tell the higher timelines now available for you. And those are the New Earth missions. So If you've already made that transition, if you feel like you've shifted, that means that you have exposed new timelines by breaking the ancestral patterns, the karmic patterns of your past, of your childhood, let's just say, of your traumas. And if you want to look at your trauma, you're going to look at your Saturn position, but really North Node is related to Saturn as well. So look at both. If you come to me, I can do this node reading for you. Now, the other part of this that I wanted to say is many people are saying we're going to have a large ascension event. We're going to have a flash of light, or we're going to have 3 days of darkness, or Jesus is going to come. One or the other, I'm just joking. But the Christians think that. So, Jesus is pretty much already here. I mean, Jesus has come into a lot of our lives. If you don't, not comfortable with Jesus, you can think of it as love consciousness, because that's really what it represents. It doesn't have to be a suffering man on a cross, right? It's a frequency. So, people were asking, are we going to have a big event that will transform people from the old earth to the new earth? And the answer that I got is no, we will not have a big event. So for those who are speaking of a rapid ascension, a huge event, I'm getting no. Now take this or leave this if this resonates or doesn't resonate with you. I think there's some camps of people that are just exhausted and they just want it to be over. Even those who are in a love frequency, they're just tired. And so they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I understand that. I think what's really hard is if you're already thinking a different way, new ways of thinking, you're on the new earth frequency, but let's just say your family isn't, or let's just say your partner isn't, or a parent isn't there. Like a lot of the parents really aren't there because many of the parents are boomer generation or older, just they're calcified a bit, and God love them, but they just, every time they're introduced to new earth concepts, they forget. You know, you might talk to them and then they have amnesia, and then you might talk to them again and then they might have amnesia again and revert back to their matrix programming. When I refer to matrix programming, I'm referring to the third dimensional earth. So I am getting that the reason why we're not going to have a mass ascension event is because this would be a missed opportunity, Kendra says, for alchemy. Now, alchemy is a big part of my chart. I help people with emotional alchemy. I help people address the emotional barriers to New Earth so that they can ascend, so that they can make big changes in their life and come into the higher fulfilling timelines. And this is against all odds, right? There might be a lot of circumstances in your life that you can't control, and still you can get to a place of love consciousness. And I know that because I've done it. Now, I'll talk about my own journey more as I go. But what's alchemy? So this would be a missed opportunity. If there was a big event, it would be such a missed opportunity for each of us to transmute and be a part of the awakening. Also, the reason why I think this is true, that Kendra's telling us the truth, is because we've had like zero break from alchemizing. And by alchemizing, that's turning lead into gold. That's turning crappy situations into positive situations. This is a skill you need to have on your ascension journey, okay? And it's those skills that are going to prepare us to be living in a higher vibrational earth and higher vibrational situations. So that's why it's so important that we each earn the skills. This is not a situation. Now, think about it this way in the Christian landscape in the Bible, when they talk about the judgment day and all of that, the end times, judgment, it's not necessarily that there's an outer power that is judging you. You are judging you in a sense, but you're actually just not really even being judged. It's the extent to which you can love yourself is the extent to where love and accept yourself and integrate the pieces of yourself that you had judged in the past, that you are not feeling, that you have been unwilling to feel your own darkness in. Once you feel that and you carry that information from the darkness, you carry those lessons with you into the light. That is the process of alchemy. This is so important. And she does say that there will be people in your family that are too stubborn to change, and that everybody's on their own journey and their own kind of timeline. I have noticed with the elders that they're either checked out, like they don't want to hear about UAPs or anything like that, because they're just like, that's not real. But it's like, at this point, there's hearings on it. We're pretty sure this exists on some level. UFOs, UAPs, that kind of thing. And there may be some people who are sort of too overly committed to their own pain, holding on to things. And for that reason, if they're in the elder generation, they may not reach that higher frequency, and they may not achieve love frequency. Even if you try to work with them, they may resist it, like heavily resist it. And so you have to kind of honor their decision. The next question I had for Kendra was, is this going to be a long process or a short process? Because some people are saying it'll happen in a flash. There'll be 3 days of darkness where all of a sudden we have these revelations. The book of Revelations, right? Okay. These are hyperbolic, like these are hyperbole when people talk about that. Actually, what it says in the astrology and what Kendra confirms is that this is really a 20-year process. You can think of it as last year, not last November, but the November before, when Pluto went into Aquarius. Now there's going to be 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius, right? During that time, Pluto will transform our groups of people. Our collective is going to be transformed, transmuted, deeply changed. So our groups will be changed. And for me, and she did agree that this was the time frame for the majority of the ascension. So if there are elders that are not wanting to ascend, they may pass before they reach ascension. And of course, when you pass, you're 100% ascended. So don't worry about that. But while they're here, they may just not have the fortitude to undergo what it takes, the shadow work, the inner work that it takes to ascend. So she says the key is to hold your optimism, to work on your skills as a rite of passage to the new earth. So that's the most important thing. My next question was, will I be able to move on with my life regardless of this earth split? You may be noticing that some people are devolving and some people are evolving. And maybe you are just barely evolving. I've been there like a lot. It's really hard to hang on to that love frequency. It requires you to love yourself despite all the negativity. And I may go into more details about that as we go, because where's that negativity coming from? I'll make another video about that, because there's a whole thing about it. And the answer to that is, can we keep moving on even though the earth is splitting? And the answer is yes. You can complete your own cycle, your own karma, through your own effort. So each person has the ability to complete the work they came here to do. So just because, the old earth might be in World War III, I'm Iranian, there's conflict with Iran. And even though that is also occurring, simultaneously, there are Iranians all over the world, including Iran, that are moving to the new earth in frequency. The Stargate is being stabilized. It's coming into a positive orientation. I've talked about that, but I think you can see both happening at once. So even though there's a great amount of evil that is being cathartically released onto the earth as well during this time, during the devolution of the old earth, there's also gains to be made in the new earth and the new earth frequency. And that you don't have to wait for anyone. Even if you're married to someone and they're moving slower than you, even if you have a sister or a brother or sibling that is either drinking too much, using substances, or a child like that, you don't have to wait for them to evolve. You just continue to evolve. And likely through your example, you will have a positive effect on them regardless. But it's that focus on your own. Everybody's doing their own work. I mean, Saturn is in Aries. That means you are dealing with your own identity, your own karma. Over the next 3 years, we're heavily shedding our karma and releasing. And a lot of us have already seen the shift occur because we've already been doing it from the past 3 years where Saturn was in Pisces. So we're already further along on our journey. And then there's some that are waking up now. There's actually no judgment, even though it's end times, because it's not really the end of all times. It's the end of the Piscean era. And that's just the era of religion, really, and right and wrong, and humanity learning the difference between right and wrong. But truly, it's a cycle of the earth falling and coming back up to its original, restored, sovereign, loving, co-creative state. Okay, is there a plan to help those struggling with the incoming higher frequencies? So I think of like my parents that are bombarded by these frequencies just as I am. When I'm bombarded by the frequencies, when you're bombarded by the frequencies, what do? You deal with your emotions. If you have trouble dealing with your emotions, please do the emotional awareness meditation. I put this out there for you. Do the dissolve the matrix meditation. Alternate. Do those as much and as frequently. Please, you guys, just use what I'm giving to you. Don't suffer. Do the work, but don't suffer so much. Use the tools. Okay, now, is there a way that we can help those who are struggling? I'm trying to help you guys if you're struggling. But let's just say it's my mom and she's totally embarrassed by me and she doesn't want to have anything to do with my meditation. She falls asleep when she meditates. She's just, she's like 84 years old. So God bless her, she's exhausted. So Kendra says, no, there really isn't a way in which I can help another person. If they're exhausted, they will still need to choose to stabilize and to persist through the process that we are all undergoing. So everybody will have invitations to up level, to regulate and elevate. Regulate your nervous system, elevate your consciousness. Regulate, elevate, elevate. That's the name of the game. That's what we're doing. If you are here listening to me, it is because you are a regulator. That's right. Regulators, mount up. Anyway, and she says, I did ask, what is the nature of our new Earth missions? If the North Node and South Node and the karma of Saturn are not driving us, meaning we're not driven by pain, essentially, to achieve as a human, what are our missions going to be like? And she said that this path of instability, emotional pain, and burden is not the true path. The new Earth is stabilized. So the astrological charts, I did ask if they will work the same way. I can read them the same way. And she said, you will be able to read them as the positions will persist. So I've heard some people say, like, the astrology doesn't apply to you when you have free will. That's not true. Okay? We're not going to suddenly not use the astrology charts or not be able to use them to help direct people or help them on their path. The path will remain. It's just not a path of suffering. It's a path of transcendence. It's higher timelines. So, I mean, I think it's going to be more pleasant than what people have been enduring. So she says there will be more you can choose to overcome, and there will be more free will to do so. It will be easier to overcome karma, like this North and South nodes, will not be as much of a struggle. Okay, the other thing I wanted to clarify, and take it or leave it, if you are dead set on certain New Age topics, this is probably not your channel, because I'm a little bit agnostic. I like to borrow from every belief system, including the Gnostic Christian or mystic Christian traditions, mystic Muslim poets like Rumi. I tend to synthesize and assimilate information from multiple different disciplines, the Hermetic texts, other ancient texts and scriptures, Vedic texts, and my belief system and what my guides are telling me. It may be specific to the way that the timeline that I'm on. And so I just want to say, take it or leave it to what you believe. But there is a group of people that do believe that there is a light body. And excuse me. I did ask my guide, what about the light body or the crystalline body? Will we be ascending to a different physical form in our lifetime? And the answer I got was no. And then I also asked, will we be changing from an omnivorous diet as a species? And the answer that I got was no. And so there are some philosophies out there that are saying that we're going to move towards eating less, a breatharian diet, a vegetarian diet, a fruitarian diet, and all of these things. I don't have that. That wasn't something that I channeled. I have that we will remain omnivorous as a whole, even as we ascend to the fifth dimension, fifth density. Now, if you feel that you want to nourish your body differently, then I say do that. As long as you're listening to your body and what your body needs, that's the key. Listen to your body. Everybody's different, and listen to what your body needs to be healthy. The one thing I will caution against is anything that you're doing that essentially stops nourishing the body. Be wary of that. We still do need to nourish our vessel. And so be careful to nourish your vessel and to eat as healthfully and as natural as you possibly can. Also, bless your food. That really, I think, helps. Blessing your food and water really does help create a higher vibrational consumption. We are still in a consumptive state. We're not able to live off of the sun, although people have advocated getting into the sun, which is a great idea. Morning sun in particular, grounding, all of those things matter and are healthy. Those things that are healthy for the physical form. Okay, and then Kendra says, we must have courage, the courage of abundance thinking. And try again when you are contracted to change your views and limiting beliefs. If there is anxiety over the dissatisfaction of your life or unfinished business that you have, of things not working out in your life, your journey will be to find your way to light. But ultimately, it is always a choice. Some may choose not to continue down this difficult path. And then I also asked, will the old earth continue to get more extreme and devolve more? And the answer was yes. And it will burn away all the falseness to forge strength in humanity. So it's kind of like the refiner's fire, if you want to look at it from a biblical perspective. It does sound a lot like Revelations in that respect, but it's not. It's like, because you're not being judged by God, you are simply, it's you for you. You're in it to win it. What I said, the next question I had was, will some of us on the new earth frequencies get to experience new earth opportunities, regardless of what's happening on old earth? And the answer is yes. But you must say no to things that are not true. As these untruths will become burdensome. You can't hold on to things that are not true, especially right now. You know, you got 3 years, Saturn and Aries. You better let go of everything that is not aligned to your identity now. And if you don't, you'll just suffer until you do let go of it. So if you do this, if you say no to those things that are untrue for you, you will stabilize. It takes courage to bring the new earth to fruition. So those are the messages from Kendra. She's pretty fucking cool. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have comments, I will respond to you. If you want more information about these subjects, please let me know. I am really just doing this out of just wanting to contribute. I just want to contribute to the conversation. I want to bring clarity to the populace. I don't care if I'm popular. I don't even care if you like me. You can just go if you don't like it. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree. These are just things that I have channeled. These are questions that I couldn't find the answers to. And so I had to eventually go to my spirit team to find the answers. So, happy ascension, everybody. And if you need help, I'll put links down below where you can find my guide and book sessions for emotional processing or anything that you need. And just go ahead and use those meditations because they're awesome. If you need help, reach out to me, send me a message, and I will help you. Take care, guys. Bye.